I want to talk about instinctive shooting and why I think it works, what my theory is on why that just works, to focus on your target and you'll hit your target. We have two things we're trying to control in our shot, essentially. The two axes is really horizontal axis for your left and right arrow placement, make sure your arrow's on target. Vertical axis for elevation, shooting uphill, downhill, flat ground at different distances, okay? Instinctive shooting naturally does both for you. With a compound bow, I switched from shooting a compound because 2 years in a row I missed 6-point bull elk at exactly 21 yards. The first year I shot just above the bull's spine because I'm so bad at judging distance in a real pressure hunting scenario like that. I shot right above his spine, missed him by this much. Well, missed him by a lot more, obviously, shooting it high. But stuck it in a tree, he slowly wandered off. I never got another shot. The next year after that, at 21 yards again, completely broadside. Bull didn't know where I was. Stopped as he came out behind a tree. I drew, comes out from behind that tree, and I thought, just put your 30 pin on him. Don't screw it up like last year. Put my 30 pin on him, straight up the back of the leg. It hit him in the scapula because he was at 21 yards, and I suck at judging distance in the field with a big game animal and a bugling bull elk and emotions and intensity high. So I started trying traditional equipment, and I wanted to learn to shoot instinctive. Initially, I just picked up a bow that my dad had built in high school that I still have. It's in the other room. There's a gentleman that lives in my hometown, and he was building the bowstring for me, and he told me, look, just look at what you want to hit. Focus on what you want to hit. It's like throwing a baseball. The arrow's going to go where you want it to. I realized from my experience and for a lot of people stepping from especially a compound where you're relying on so many things to line up your shot, that can be a tough leap of faith or leap of trust to try and accomplish that task. But I'm hoping that describing what I'm going to describe gives enough of a reason to try it and believe it that you'll either, one, try it, or two, keep trying if it's not working initially. But basically, in my opinion, your form follows your focus, okay? And I'll tell you what I'm talking about. I've got 3 little toys that the kids left out here on the carpet. There's a little unicorn there. There's a bison a little further down the living room. There's a turtle down by that bedroom door. When I'm shooting a traditional bow, I'm essentially pointing at my target, okay? If I put my bow down, there's the unicorn. My eye's looking directly over my finger at that unicorn, okay? Hopefully this is all lining up good. There's the bison toy. There's the turtle. Did you see what happened with my bow arm? It's low, it's higher, it's a little higher. Your sight pin on a compound does that for you. You don't just look at what you're shooting, you pull back however you do it, and then you start finding sight pins. Guess what? With a traditional bow, you don't have to do any of that. Just look at what you're focused, what you want to hit. There's that bison. There's the unicorn. There's the turtle. And I'll knock an arrow real quick. My bow arm and my sight window naturally goes to where my eye's looking as I extend it. Unicorn. Bison. And I am anchoring. You know, typically I'll either anchor, relax for a minute, and then shoot, or I'll just basically snap shoot, and either one works. Turtle. Okay, my bow arm raised according to the distance. Same thing with shooting from a tree, shooting up an incline on a hill. Same thing will work. That is all that's required to have your elevation correct on your shot. Okay. As far as the left and right goes, it's a function of your anchor. Okay. I'm a right-handed shooter. If I bring this up, there it is. I'm looking at the camera. It just went to where I'm looking, okay? Same thing if I rest this on the rest of the bow. It's looking, if I'm anchoring, it's looking or I'm looking, all right? And I don't have to look at that arrow. That lines up your horizontal shot. The way you're gonna miss on your horizontal shot or your horizontal axis, one, for me, and this will all be reversed for a left-handed shooter, being right-handed. If I pluck the bowstring on my release, what will happen is the bow arm will get pulled right just a little bit. Boom, I'm off. If I draw back, and if here's my anchor point and I'm out here, hopefully you see what I'm trying to display here. I'm exaggerating it. But if this is my anchor point, and boom, I'm just looking at the camera lens and that arrow's on it, but I come back and I'm out here and I don't fully anchor, you can't see that angle from there, so I'll exaggerate it, right? My hand's way out here. There's where that arrow's going. If it's here, it's going towards that camera. If it's here, it's going to miss that camera just slightly, okay? Those are really the two main ways I see left and right misses for my shooting. Missing low. I just discussed how elevation works. It's just a function of you pointing at your target and your bow arm coming up to your target. That's all it is. Missing low, if I draw back and before I release, I feel like, oh, everything's perfect. I've got this. This is just right. I'm focused. I'm clean. Here comes my anchor. It's going to be a bullseye, and I allow this bow arm to drop. I release that string, and that bow arm comes down, or I peek to see if I've hit. You're probably going to drop the arrow low. Missing high, for me, is a function of focus on the target. I'm rushing the shot, and I'm doing something to where I don't settle in and let go of that string right when I'm, at full draw and real focused, or I'm overbowed. I'm pulling too much draw weight, which is forcing my bow arm up. As I draw through further and further and stack more weight, my bow arm's coming up just slightly, right? There it is. There you have it. If you will look at what you're wanting to hit, you can hit it. Your horizontal shot placement will be on simply because you're pointing, providing a rest, and you're anchoring back here, and the arrow is just going to follow what you're looking at. I don't look at the arrow. The worst shots I ever make, as I mentioned, there's kind of two ways I shoot. One is I just let it flow, man. Just let it flow. Draw back, hit my anchor, boom, I'm off, and it's money, right? Bam, that arrow went where it was supposed to because I didn't drop my bow arm. I didn't pluck the string. I had a clean release. I anchored correctly. I at least touched that spot before I let go. That's a clean shot. It'll go where I'm looking. The other thing I do, because I wanted to practice this and get used to it, because this is almost against what I just described, is drawing and anchoring and holding. Okay, hold. Say no, because just staring me down the face. And I gotta wait. I don't want to move. I need him to turn. A bear looked up from the bait at me. I don't want him to see me. I gotta wait for him to just rotate his shoulder so I get that shot in there. Whatever it is, I want to be able to hold. What will happen, and you'll probably see it here, is when I anchor and hold, the bow's going to have a moment of this after I hit my anchor. But if I will keep my focus on the target and refocus myself, my body language will put it back where it needs to be, okay? So there was just a tiny wobble there from when I anchored and started just struggling with that weight for just a second to just relax and hold it. And it all settled down, and my hand, I didn't think about where my hand was. I just thought about where that lens of that camera that I'm looking at is. And my hand naturally went back to where it needed to be. Okay? Really all you need to know is that if you look at what you want to hit, you'll hit it. It may take some time to steady your shot, to clean up your release. But other than that, all you really need to know is your form will follow your focus. Your body language will follow your focus. So you truly can just pick a spot and shoot, and it'll work. I've seen a guy who used to accurately pull his bow like this, then find a spot. And the second he was looking at the shot clearly, boom, he was let go. And he shot really well. To me, that's not practical for hunting, to pull and then really rapidly come up and then let it fly once you see what you're looking at. And I feel like it's maybe a little bit of paranoia where you're trying to avoid, if you're doing that, maybe you're trying to avoid seeing that arrow. Because for me, when I see that arrow, and 99% of the time, if I'm basically snap shooting and just releasing right as I touch my anchor, I will never know that arrow's there. But when I draw an anchor and hold, oh, I notice it in my peripheral, my eyes sometimes will glance and be like, oh, well, where's that arrow pointing? If I ever do that, which in that circumstance happens more frequently where you're holding and holding and holding, you're more apt to then notice that arrow. If I ever do that and don't re-engage my focus on the target, that is the worst shot I'd ever make. I will sometimes miss the target. A 2x2 target I can miss at 25 yards doing that, because in the time that I went from looking at that to looking at my arrow, something in my form changed, something moved, I got distracted, boom, it's off. But if that happens and I bring my eye back to that target, at some point that arrow is going to come back to where I was focused on. It's going to settle in, everything's going to feel natural, I'm going to let it fly, and it's going to hit. So I practice both ways. Your focus will determine, you don't have to give yourself a brain aneurysm and burst a vessel to focus on your target. I shoot best when I'm just relaxed, calm, and enjoying myself, and maybe deliberate to a point. And maybe that's one more point I should make is, in my opinion, you're harmonizing your form and your focus. Your form generally should and can and will drive, your focus will drive your form correct if your focus is good. But if you feel the need to work on getting a anchor point that feels comfortable, that's repeatable, that has a clean release, that's fine, and you should. But you will find that the more you focus on function and form of your shot, it will distract your focus and your accuracy can start declining. And so you can be like, man, why I'm trying so hard to hold my bow steady, to anchor, to have a clean release, and my shots are all over the place. Well, it's because all those things are filling up your brain instead of that spot you want to hit. And another way to demonstrate how that can interfere is if I'm shooting at a paper target with a bunch of rings on it, that's about the worst I'll ever shoot, because there's just too much going on out there. There's too much to look at. If I shoot at a foam target that has a dot on it, that brings my focus in. If I shoot at a foam target that has nothing on it, it is blank, and I have to really focus in and find something on that target to look at, that brings my focus and my accuracy up another level. And if I'm shooting at a 3D target or a paper animal target where I'm picking out a hair or I'm picking out a crease in the leg, bam, that brings me up. So ultimately, what you see is what you get with your shot. What you're really focused in on is where your shot's going to go. And the more you allow that to be distracted, well, my kids are coming out in the yard, or they're going to come running out in front of my arrow, my shot's going to turn into a mess, or you're just not paying attention. You're just flipping arrows for the fun of it, and you're not really thinking, oh, this is a hunting scenario, and I want to hit that. That all distracts. Anything that's kind of clouding up your mind or distracting you will get in the way of your shot. But if you have some clarity, it's just going to go where you want it to without you having to do a thing other than touch a spot and let it go. It'll happen. So hopefully that helps. Okay, so you take a couple shots with this thing at about a half size antelope. I do have a couple broadheads loaded that I shoot 175 grain heads. I got a Woodsman 3-blade and a Grizzly 2-blade, so we'll try those out too. So that's the first two shots of the day. This was the Broadhead. I actually wanted it just a couple inches higher, but that's a pretty good shot considering this is his belly line, and that he's really kind of maybe half size of what an antelope would be, about right there. That's not a bad shot. That'd be in the scapula. So I'm not as happy about that. But again, considering that he's actually in real life got a little more room, that's not terrible. But I wanted both of them right there, and they didn't. They're about there actually, and they didn't go there. So that's 20 yards with a 2-blade broadhead. That is exactly where I was looking. But that's what's typical for me, is, you know, keeping them something like that in a circle, but very, very often taking the one shot, making sure you take a clean shot, clean release, good focus, and landing it exactly where you're looking. So super happy about that. There was the first shot at 20, this one was at 15. So the 20 was actually better. The 15 went, you know, inch left, 1.25 inches. Still very happy about that shot. Okay, good as gold. Yeah, I was slicking here, but I hit here. That was 20 yards. There's his near shoulder, or his near side leg. So I did want it here, but I'm happy. So although that was only 15 yards, that's exactly where I was looking. Exactly where I was looking. And if the proof isn't in the pudding, that referencing the arrow doesn't work, won't work, and will screw me up. Again, only 15 yards, but that's where I'm going to set. If I get my antelope tag, where the draw results are supposed to come out here pretty quick. If I get my tag for archery, I'm setting my blind between 15 and 20 from the water hole. I mean, this is just the plan. So they fly exactly the same. And these are practice heads. They're a little bit beat up because this one I actually tried to change the adapter in it, and I grabbed it with a pair of pliers and crunched the ferrule, but it's still flying straight. So freaking love it, man. Love it. Just like I described, sometimes I'm like, oh, it's a chip shot, and I drop my bow arm as I release. That's where I was looking. I dropped my bow arm. It's spinning okay. It's a little bit, tiny bit of wobble. This has been a great video to demonstrate. I don't know how many shots I've put in that same hole at varying distances, with different broadheads, and they're all flying the same. It's what makes this addicting. It's what makes this so fun. Don't need to know the distance. They'll fly the same. You've got your arrow tuned right. And your shots can be absolutely money if you make them clean. As I just showed on that last one, I dropped it low because I went, oh, this is so easy. Honk. Instead of just keeping my bow arm up until that arrow hit the target. It's real life right there. That's much more typical for what I'm used to doing. You know, that far off, not bad. I think the way I consistently threw 3 shots from 30 into the same spot is I was overdrawing the bow.
I had a really solid anchor, so they went in the same spot, but I overdrew it, which put it to the right of my face, which put its trajectory going slightly left. I'll just shoot a couple more. Okay, there's another one. There's another one. It's, you know, just over an inch right and a half-inch low. There you go. It works. Just focus on the spot. Don't worry about how far it is. Okay, so here's another one. That was like a controlled, slow snapshot. I didn't hold the bow back at all. I just touched my anchor and let it fly. You know, and that one's what? 1.5 inches, 2 inches at most off of the center of that leaf. So I'm just gonna keep throwing some arrows one at a time. All right, there it is. 30 yards with a 2-blade broadhead. I should have turned that target to face me. I didn't realize I had it kind of sitting on an angle, but you'll see the shot. So that's what I was expecting to happen yesterday. My 30-yard shots are almost always just like that. That's probably what, an inch at most, just off a little bit. And that's the angle I was shooting from, so that flew in straight as could be. But that's that 2-blade broadhead. So I think what I did yesterday when I was shooting that antelope target, I was overdrawing by a 1/2 inch or so. And that was causing my hand to come out to the right of my face a little bit more, which then puts the arrow off a little bit to the left. So there you have it. There you go. I'll make that the last one. 30 yards. All right. Take a look at that. Perfect left and right. Maybe 3/8 of an inch below where I was looking on that little leaf. So there you have it. That was with that 2-blade 175 grain grizzly stick, or grizzly broadhead. That's just how it works, man. I'm just, on that shot specifically, I really made sure, I did have to think about it, because I think what I was doing yesterday is focusing so much on the target at 30 yards to make sure my eye didn't wander, that I wasn't keeping a clean release. And so on that one, I did try to make sure that I could feel that finger into the corner of my mouth before I let that go.